Hey everybody, this is Perch, and it's a new year, and coming up on the anniversary of the channel. That'll be the end of March, early April, so that's exciting. Been at this for 5 years, and how many videos now? I think, good Lord, it's well over 2,000. So there's that time when I was doing 3 a day. Do you remember that time? It was a nightmare time for me, probably for all of you as well. It's too much to listen to. Anyway, one of these things that I've been looking back a lot and thinking about the things that have continued. And, COVID hit kind of in the middle of this channel. And then we watched the industry kind of deal with that. And in hindsight, that was an interesting test or an interesting moment where we got to see how well the comic industry can handle disruption, because that's what COVID was. Digital, a lot of people talk about digital as being disruptive, and it is. But the comic industry, by and large, ignored it, purposefully, in some cases, ignored it. And it hasn't had the same impact in this country. Now, I think the disruption for digital is still coming. I think that living in a world where you've got, Shonen doing, what is it? Is it $1? It's like $3 a month. It's like some absurdly low amount for their digital app, and kind of an all-you-can-eat way. That's going to come home to roost to some extent. I mean, it can't, that discrepancy can't survive in comics. It's just not going to. And so we see a lot of change and we see a lot of disruption, but COVID was the one where I think we really got to see, some major disruption, and the comic industry unable to kind of ignore their way out of it. And I think they did try. I mean, the entire Diamond, the comeback will be bigger than the setback, and all the rest. Everything's right back to how it was. Marvel, it's like, here's Empire, here's a big event. We're going to keep doing things the way we've been doing them. And we've got 2 events a year. And I mean, you saw the comic industry really struggle to return to norm, as opposed to look at things and say, yeah, I think that this is a sign. I think there's a disruption lesson to be learned here, and we really need to start thinking about our business differently. In fairness, I think DC did a bit of this. They did go like, we're going to go to Tuesdays, we're going to go to a different distributor, we're going to try and multi-source what we're doing, and I think they tried to do some of it, but it wasn't enough. And the biggest, maybe scary thing with what this disruption showed us is that, if you remember, DC had 2 distributors picked out. There's Lunar, and then there was it was an acronym. Anyway, they had 2, and then relatively quickly one bowed out, and it just wasn't financially sustainable for them. It didn't work out. The logistics weren't right, but most importantly, they learned that the business wasn't healthy enough to really get this thing moving again, like when you had multi-distributors during the 80s. And so, what lesson does that teach us? It teaches us that if there's another COVID, or if there's another disruptive event, or there's something kind of really dramatic that happens, the idea that, we can just reach back into our past and just run a playbook from before, which is a little bit unfair to DC to completely cite it that way. But there's definitely there's easy solutions to this. Let's just try this, or do things that are really just kind of cosmetic in nature. Like, we're gonna have our comics out on Tuesday instead of Wednesday. I mean, all right. Those things don't work. And so it's kind of a wake-up call that a lot of the leadership in these companies are just not equipped to deal with change. And so if we hit another moment with change, and, could come in a bunch of different, forms, chances are it's going to come in several at once. It's not going to be like, COVID. It's weird to describe it this way. COVID was a bit of a blessing for comics in a way, because it was a single change, a single thing to kind of deal with. Now, granted, it had a lot of different elements, supply chain and everything else that were going on. But still, as disruptions go, it wasn't multiple threats all hitting at the same time. And in a lot of other businesses, that is what you get. You get several different events all happening at once. And that tends to be really, really problematic. You think about Kodak. They're in the film business, and you simultaneously had the rise of mobile phones with good cameras, and you had people wanting to do more, things based out of convenience. And it's just, you had a lot of different elements strike simultaneously. and companies were just not able to deal with it. It was too much too soon. So I think if there's a warning sign, and a lot of people do these videos and they're on YouTube channels, and it feels like a sky is falling kind of industry half the time. This sucks. This is bad. This is going to destroy everything. I think, comics has to reckon with the fact that by and large, if you look at this business, many of the elements are exactly the same as they've been for 40 odd years. Now, how many times on this channel or other channels have I said, man, it'd be nice if we could go back to some of the storytelling tropes of the 80s. It would be nice if we could go to the price point of the 80s. There's a lot of, it would be nice if we could go back. But one area you won't hear me say we should go back with is in dealing with your overall business. You have to be innovative. You have to keep things new, and you have to try things, and you have to be careful of things that appear innovative but really aren't. I've heard you've heard Marvel talk about some of their events as being innovative. Well, it's an old playbook at this point. Variant covers are an old playbook at this point. Collector schemes, all of these things. The way distribution is handled, the way your supply chain is handled, the way your creators are paid and hired and contracted is old. As an aside, one thing to kind of keep in mind on, with COVID over, you're seeing conventions come back and you're seeing more and more people go to them. There was a couple of creators last year who were still like, I'm not going back. COVID's not over. I'm not going back. It's like, all right. It's those people are treated like cranks now, not like anybody who has anything reasonable to say. But one thing that is also coming back with the conventions is the after hours bar con. And this is a whole topic for another video, but it's telling that the comic industry is so willing to get right back into after hours events that it's pretty much shown it can't handle. And for what it's worth, it's not just comics. You have lots of different industries. And by the way, you can call me a hypocrite if you want. I drink plenty and enjoy it. But, businesses, the tech industry in the 90s would go down to CES, this big show in Vegas, once a year, still going on. Or the gaming industry would go to Gen Con or to E3 or events like that. And the after hours parties would be legendary. They would be like open bars. People would get absolutely hammered, forget where they were. All kinds of chaos would go on. At some point, the companies themselves, the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts, the Teslas, the companies there, or in gaming, the Sonys, the Microsofts, they eventually stopped sponsoring these things, and they started putting out pretty heavy rules to their employees, saying, "Look, it's terminationable offenses still exist even when you fly away from the office and you get hammered. It's not a get out of punishment free card." And comics they have to reckon with this because right now we're in this gross cycle where you see all these things on Twitter, and you see people getting canceled, and you see this person is Warren Ellis did this to me, and how many of these events are magically center on these BarCon events. People get destroyed, say things crazily, flirt with each other, do things, and here's the problem for the publishers. A lot of, I've talked to people about this, like, well, you can't really stop what freelancers do. Yeah, except those BarCons are usually populated by your staffers, by your editors. They're there too. And everybody loves a good drink, and if the people are responsible, it's fine. But an industry that's simultaneously wrestling with, hey, feels like there's a lot of abuse problems and a lot of grooming and other things going on. But we'll see you at the party. It's like, again, the big corporations and other industries saw this, ignored it. After a while, realized, yeah, we're culpable here. At some point, it no longer works to go, oh yeah, that's, what they do on their own time is their business. It's like, no, you're, in some cases, you're sponsoring it. And that's just gonna, it's weird, by the way, and it's a video for another time. And I'll wrap it up with this is, you think about the amount of articles that Heidi McDonald, for example, has written about problems in the industry. And then you look at the kind of the documentary about the Warren Ellis forums, where Heidi was very much an active member of them. and you look at the bar cons where Heidi's often a very active member of them, and you're like, okay. Come on, you're right there in the thick of it. You can't write these, boy, this is very disappointing in the comic industry. I'll see you at C2E2. Have fun. I mean, the two don't go together. Only in comics, folks. Anyway, the point of this ultimately is, look, disruption is coming. It has come. It's going to come again. And I think COVID was a good lesson or a good example of how poorly equipped the comic industry is to deal with these things. And some grown-ups, some adults need to get in the room and start figuring out how this business evolves and how it's going to change and how they're going to manage that disruption. Because otherwise, I don't know. It was very scary to watch COVID happen in real time and watch how poor everyone was at handling it, and realize that, hey, one more of these things. In fact, it doesn't have to be a worldwide pandemic. One that just has a few disruptive elements in it. Is going to take this whole thing out really quickly. And, I mean, you have the love of comics, of course, but you also have just, big businesses who would like to make money at this, or at least return money to their debtors. You better come up with a contingency plan. Most large companies, by the way, the board will, has, and definitely now in the last 4 years, started to request and require the emergency plan. What happens if your business gets disrupted? What are you going to do? Well, they war game disaster scenarios. Comics needs that bad. There was a wake-up call. Didn't feel like many people woke up. Anyway, let me know what you think. Like and subscribe. I haven't said that in a while. Anniversary's coming up, folks. We got to get us to 45,000. All right. Thanks for listening.